All right, so I wanted to make this video because I was really interested in the kind of the physics problems and stuff that's been in this game for a while. So I just wanted to start kind of exploring what could be causing it and stuff like this. And I think I found some interesting things. I'm gonna clarify at the start. Obviously, I haven't been following the development the whole time. I've only been playing the game for like a few years, in which I took a year-long break, so I'm not up to date on all the talk that's been happening. But I just don't have anyone to contact about it, or don't know who to talk to. So I just figured I'm gonna look into it myself and see what I can find out. And the first thing I found was one of the first interesting things I found was the post by Doofus on the MXP forums. He kind of talks about what he thinks could be causing the issues. Okay, so here he wonders about the how the bike stays upright, and he thinks it's the leg physics, which I agree with. I think the leg stuff is doing some wonky stuff. That is completely right. But when he talks about the virtual rider, I think he gets some things, or he doesn't consider everything exactly. So I'm gonna like try to kind of explain the virtual rider a bit. From what I found out, obviously I can be wrong, and everyone can say their own opinion, or if they know a different thing, then comment or say something. I know everyone's gonna already like roll their eyes when I say it, but we kind of need to talk about how a bike turns. Okay, I'm gonna show and I'm gonna explain things a bit because I want everyone watching the video to understand this. Like, I know 99% of people understand at least some of it, but I just want everyone to kind of be on track. Let me just try to do a hard turn. Well, a mellow turn, but I think you should show. So obviously, can we see it? Yeah. So when we go and we want to lean the bike and turn, we obviously have to turn the handlebars slightly to the left, which we can see ever so slightly here. And then we can see when we catch the turn is when the handlebars turn back in. So you can see the difference from here, where we want more lean, and here when we're actually turning in. So that should be obvious to most people. So now what isn't so obvious, I don't think, is how you get out of a lean, because that is an important thing here overall. So you get into a lean by turning the opposite way. How do you get out of a lean? So if I want to get out of this, what is actually happening to make the bike go upright? Well, I'm turning in. I'm turning more. So I'm pushing the front wheel under the bike. So let's see if I can get a demo. So I turn in. I turn out. Let's see if we can see that on the replay. So we turn the handlebars. I'm gonna say out from the corner. So we're gonna turn the handlebars out to make the bike lean in. We then catch the turn, or we catch the lean angle, basically by making the bars pretty much neutral again, which means they're gonna be slightly turning, so the bike turns. Then we're turning. We can hold it steady. Then when we want to get out of the turn lean, we actually have to turn in. So you can see the front wheel ever so slightly, just the tiniest amount. The front wheel turns in. You can see if you compare the distance to the shock. You can see the bike starts turning in, and the force pushes us out and up. Yeah. And I have examples of this from real life if you don't trust the game physics. So here I have an example of a person doing a fast turn, and he wants to straighten the bike out like instantly. So what does he do? A very quick turn of the wheel. Very, very slight, very, very quick. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see when he's here, he starts turning the bike this way, which then causes it to come upright. And then he adjusts. You can see the angle of the wheel. You can see the spokes. When he goes straight, you don't see the spokes anymore. and he starts going straight. Another thing to consider is the lateral forces that come into play when you're sliding, for example. So in this turn, they're coming into it pretty smooth, gripping up. But then at the end of the turn, watch what happens. They slide the rear end out, maybe intentionally, maybe accidentally. Who knows? I'm not sure about the speed of things, but in real life, the bike sometimes slides. And what can you do with that slide? Well, you can use the grip you get from the sideways here force here. So when the rear tire grips up, for example, here you can see it really well because there's a bump which gives the rear tire even more grip. So he's sliding, and when the rear grips, he can do a slight combined with a slight turn of the wheel. He gets like launched the other way. So combining this lateral force that comes from sliding and a small turn of the wheel, you get kind of forced out. You get pushed out. And you can actually do this in the game, doing it basically exactly like this. And it's pretty cool. I didn't know you can do it, but you can. I'll show the clip here. And then everything here is very slight. You never see the front wheel move much. Even here, it's not actually the front wheel isn't moving, it's the rear tire that's moving. So you never do. You're always so smooth with with the controls of your handlebars. So what happens if you're not smooth with this? You can kind of think about it for a second. We can go to this example, and you can imagine what happens to this guy if he now turns too much. The front end will get launched into this direction. Now it's really hard to do this because of the wheel geometry and how it works. I think it's called caster. It's the reason the bike gets heavier to kind of steer when you're going faster. But yeah. But if he were to somehow suddenly turn the wheel this way, he would obviously launch that way as well. Because the front grips, he goes flying. He probably falls on this side, right? Because he's gonna go this way. The forces are gonna push him out, right? So now, what about slow speeds? Because this is obviously happening very fast, so you need to be very delicate with the handlebars. What about slow speeds? Well, we can go back into the game and kind of experiment. Because, again, MXBikes is a simulator. It's a good simulator. So, in the game, we can explore what happens if you do it really fast and really unsmooth. If we turn the direct lean up. Because now, we can turn a lot faster. What happens when we come up too fast? Our front end comes up. And I'll show you what that looks like on the replay. So we're turning. Then we tell the game we want to come up really fast. So what the game does is it'll turn in a lot. So you can come up a lot. And as you can see, just like in real life, if you were to turn more here or turn the handlebars more here, the front would start going this way, right? So if you imagine if you somehow were to turn this 90 degrees, it would start going towards the shocks, the wheel. So the more you turn, the more these get compressed. So now we are asking for the game to bring us up really quick. So the game is going to turn in really quick to make that happen for you. What happens after you level out and the shocks come back up? Your front wheel bounces. So it's completely normal in this situation for the tire to come up. It makes perfect sense. You turn the handlebars too quick. So what actually causes the back and forth that happens? I'll try to get a demo of it here. There you go. So why is the back and forth actually happening? Because I'm letting go of the stick, right? I'm not telling the game to turn. Why does it keep turning like this? Why does it keep going back and forth? I'm not telling the game to do anything. Well, you actually are telling the game what you want to do constantly, but only if your direct lean is more than 0, right? So if it's anywhere above 0, you are telling the game constantly what you want to do. Because when you don't touch the stick, That just means the stick is straight, right? Or what the game thinks is you want for the game to constantly make corrections so you stay straight, upright. So what happens when you combine the front forks compressing, the front wheel lifting into the air, and the game constantly thinking you want to stay straight up? Well, let's see. I'll do a demo again. There. So let's actually go and look what is happening here. I'm upright right now. I'm not touching the stick. The game is happy. I'm already upright. Good. When I start to lean, I put a lean input in. It tells the game I want to change my angle. I want to lean this way. So what the game has to do is turn the tire this way so it gives me lean. So now I'm leaning. Now we will catch the lean by just holding the stick at the angle we want. The game will now then know that this is the angle we want. We can now kind of put the bars neutral and hold the lean. I then instantly let go of the lean. So what happens now to the bars? What is the only way the bike can go up at this point? The only way the bike will stand up if it turns left. So this wheel has to turn left for the bike to stand up. The wheel turns left to make me go upright. The forks compress. I'm upright, but it's too late. I'm already bouncing. Now what happens is I'm still not touching the stick, but because of the momentum of what happened before, now I'm leaning the other way. So what does the game have to do? I'm telling the game I want to be straight. I'm not touching the stick. The game thinks I want to be straight. It needs to then turn the wheel right. Now we have the momentum from what happened before. We're turned over. The game, we tell the game we want to be straight. The game has to then, the only way it can make me go straight is if it turns this wheel. And we already have so much momentum. The forks compress completely. And the front is just a pogo stick right now. Somehow it actually takes this and it doesn't bounce. But once it's settled, now we're happy. So that all the game had to do all of that because you wanted to go straight too fast. Your input was too fast for a motorbike, right? So a high direct lean will turn the bars no matter what the bike will do. And this is what causes the weird back and forth. It's because you are constantly telling the game that you want to be upright. So there isn't weird physics going on. It's just a control issue. You're asking the bike to do something it physically cannot. It can't make you go upright instantly without turning the front wheel. If you turn the front wheel too fast, you go into the bush. This is not caused by the physics at all. And I can show this by putting the direct lean to 0, obviously. And now, when I lean and let go of the stick, I'm actually not asking for anything. Now, if I push back, I can start coming back up. Because you can't turn harder. It's just not possible on a bike. And in real life, they don't either. Like, no matter how good the rider is, they will never turn the handlebars that quick. They are doing other stuff. They will never turn the handlebars that quick. They're doing other stuff. They're managing their body weight. They're probably leaned into the corner way before the corner. So they will do something like this. They'll be leaned in, and then they catch the rut, and the rut leads them. But you're never asking a bike to come up instantly, because it doesn't work like that. You can't do that. And we can actually kind of prove this by getting rid of the virtual rider. And we can do that. I don't know, most people probably know, but there's a hardcore mode. You can turn the virtual rider off, and I'll do that now. So the virtual rider is now off. I'm directly controlling the handlebars when I turn left with my... Actually, I'll turn the inputs on so you can see. When I lean left, the handlebars turn left. So I'm directly controlling the bars right now. And you can do this by adding things to the profile.ini. You can add a hardcore mode with a direct steer of 2 and a max angle of 50. I'll show it on the screen. You can add this to your profile INI and you'll basically get this. And I want to say before I do anything, this is not how the game is meant to be played. This is meant for if you actually had a handlebar setup that had forces and you could feel them and all that. This is not meant for a controller because it just makes no sense. But it's fun to fuck around with. So how does this actually work now? Well, when we turn left or when we turn right, we can see that actually we're just turning right. Interesting. And if we add more speed, we start leaning. And then we turn left. To turn left. Now we lean and then we turn. So we actually, this makes it so you actually have to lean into the direction. And this just proves that it's a control issue, not a physics issue. Because obviously there's no issues like this. If you're smooth enough, you will never get the back and forth. Because obviously you don't ride a bike just going back and forth with the handlebars. So you will never get the back and forth like this. You can obviously take an angle that's too high and fall, but the back and forth doesn't happen because your inputs have to be so much smoother now. There's actually some dampening or some filtering here. I think it's in the bike files and you can't really get rid of it in MXBikes. You can in GP-Bikes, I think. I think it's the forces from the front wheel hitting the ground, because if I wheelie, I can turn the bars however much I want, but on the ground, it's a lot harder to turn the bars, and you can't turn it off, so it's unfortunate. But this makes it so you have to actually use the lean and lean the bike. And if you are smooth with it, you will never get the speed wobbles, because it's not a physics issue, it's a control issue. You are using controls which do not let you control the bike like you do in real life with handlebars. Obviously, I'm not saying to use this. This is awful for riding. It's really hard. But it just shows the point that it's not a physics issue. So now, if I never lean, or if I never counter lean, I will just fall over. Obviously, the leg physics are still there. I can't do anything about those. I can do weird stuff like this still, but that's because I'm being too rough with the inputs. Even though I'm like barely leaning or turning at all, it's still too much because I don't have as much control with the stick as I do with handlebars, right? So this is just to kind of prove that the physics aren't broken. It's your inputs. You are inputting turning too fast, or you're telling the game to do something that a bike can't do. So now that I think we've learned a few things, let's look at the original post again and see if we can analyze what actually happened in the clip he showed. So here's the videos that he showed. And first he has the grip stuff, which is valid. The leg stuff is valid. But here, let's actually look at this clip and see what is happening. So at the start, we can see that he has a nice slide going on. This was exactly like we saw in real life that you can slide the rear out. But if you remember, those lateral forces that cause the bike to stand up. So what I'm guessing is happening here is the bike is sliding, the rear grips up, pushes the bike up, and at this point I'm guessing he's still leaning the stick. So he is telling the game that he wants to lean. So what does the bike have to do? If you want more lean, the bike has to turn in. Well, it turns the handles. This leans the bike over again. But because the front wheel was so light already, the front wheel is actually in the air here. We can see the front wheel is in the air. So the game can't do anything while the front wheel is in the air. But as soon as it hits the ground, the game is like, oh shit, you want more lean. So the game gives him more lean. But this also means that the front is gripping. It's throwing him the other way. At this point, he probably lets go of the stick because he's just over it. So now he lets go of the stick. And now the game is like, oh, you want to be upright. So what does the game have to do to make you upright? Well, it needs to turn the front tire in. So it turns the front tire in because you're telling it that you want to be upright. And because again, you've gathered so much momentum from the bouncing before, it just throws you around and off the bike, and now you're just dead. So when what he's calling intelligence isn't really fair, because he is telling the game to do all this. Now, this bug that was fixed, I don't know what it was exactly, but it did not relate to this. It does not relate to this, and we know this because this bug got fixed, and that did nothing for this. So here he says this is all related, and that it's the virtual rider doing weird things, which is kind of true, but kind of not. But I'm guessing the bug was just the virtual rider didn't know the angle of the bike while the bike was climbing a hill. So it probably thinks that the bike is leaned over and is trying to correct that lean. Or it's trying to... so your stick is straight and the game thinks that, oh shit, we are leaning over right now. Let me correct that. So this was just a bug. Probably. This is all assumption. I'm just assuming, but I'm guessing the rider just didn't know what angle the bike was in actually, or like if it was going straight or not. Again, let's analyze. He's turning in, valid. I obviously don't know what his inputs were here, but he's probably leaning over. Then maybe the front, maybe this is valid clip. Front wheel hits something, but he might have put the stick back up here, which means the wheel will turn in, which makes him go upright. Again, front wheel is in the air, you can't control it. It's leaning this way, he's not touching the stick, which means the game has to turn this way, so the bike will be straight again because he's again not touching the stick. And now, because the terrain, it's leaning this way, but so the bike needs to turn in. So because he's not touching the stick, the bike needs to turn in to make him go upright again. And it just causes this back and forth. The reason this happens is because you are telling the game all the time that you want to be upright. And the game has only one way to do that, and that is by turning the front wheel. And there's no other way to do it. But a key part I actually wanted to clarify and left out was to consider what you're actually doing when you're leaning. So in the post that Doofy made, he obviously clarifies that when you lean in this game, you are not doing anything, basically. The only thing you're doing is telling the game what lean angle you would like. And so the game then puts in the inputs that get you that lean angle. And that's all that you're doing. And we can prove this if we just slow down. So if you watch my lean input, you can see I'm constantly leaning the same amount, which means that when I slow down, for me to keep this lean, the bike needs to turn in more. So you can see the bike is turning in a lot more when I slow down, and it kind of straightens up when I speed up. So it's keeping the lean the same, but that does not mean anything to actually steering or like turning. Because when you're going slow, you need to actually be upright to turn tightly. So if we now kind of experiment with this, why does the front wheel like lock up like this? Well, that's just because you're leaning too much. The game physically, the bike physically cannot keep you up anymore. Because the bike is, again, the game is trying to keep the lean angle that you want. But if you go too slow, there is no way to turn the handlebars to give you that lean angle. So it'll just go maximum, and then it'll lock. And then then when you're going really slow, that's when the legs kick in, and that's why you don't fall down here. So you can see the bike really wants to keep me up, and that's why it's turning all the way. And the legs are just keeping me up. And again, just because I'm leaning a lot doesn't mean I'm turning the handlebars a lot. Because if we go fast and I lean all the way, I'm not turning the handlebars much at all. Okay, so now let's like recap. So it's a combination of everything, all of these things that create the issues. So first off, let me put on a high direct lean to show it better. So first off, a high direct lean means that you will be turning way too quick for a bike. Nobody is turning handlebars this quickly, unless you're like slow, like right now. And then that bouncing is again caused by you just turning too quick and the momentum carrying you the other way and the game trying to correct for it. But it's because of your input. The game isn't doing anything wrong. There is no way for the game to read your input in a different way unless you want to put in artificial filtering and or like fake physics to fix your mistakes. That is the only thing you can do. Is either to filter the inputs you're making or make fake physics for the game that keep you upright. And I actually wanted to add this after the fact because I think PiBoSo would agree with what I'm saying. You can see from 2014, people were talking about the different kind of direct steer method. So that's what I showed in the video. Was the hardcore direct steer 2 is what they're talking about here. So that they're suggesting stabilizers and stuff like this. And PiBoSo says that there's no more work to do on the hardcore modes except tuning of the torque for mode 2 unless you want fake external forces to keep the bike from falling that are out of the question. So this is exactly what I was saying, that the hardcore, the physics of the game are fine. It is the tuning of the controls for a controller that need work. Unless you want some magic forces that keep you up, that don't let you steer too much. So the torque he's talking about, I'm guessing, is the torque that I was dealing with on the ground. So the ground forces, or how much torque the player or the rider applies when you're on the ground. So I'm guessing he means tuning for that. But I just wanted to add this. I'm pretty sure this has been known by PiBoSo for a long time. So I'm pretty sure he's getting kind of tired of people saying it's a physics issue when it's a control issue. And PiBoSo, obviously, from what I've read on the forums here, I've gone through. I think I actually went through all the pages just to see what he was saying about the early development and how what he was saying to respond to people asking questions. I assume that he really wants the game's physics to be pure, and I think they're pretty close already. But the hard part, like he says, is to make an MX simulator feel good on a controller. So I guess the point was that it's just not able for the bike to do the things you're asking it to do. This all happens because the physics are realistic. It happens because you're controlling handlebars of a bike with a controller. It happens because you're giving the game constant inputs on what you want it to do. When you let go, you are still telling the game what you want to do. The game is just trying to make that happen for you. So just don't blame the game as much. I've been experimenting with lower direct lean settings, and honestly, the game feels really nice. It's just fun to kind of do corners like this, where you actually have to kind of lean into it first and then do the corner. The biggest issue is that you just can't whip much or scrub much because you just don't have the air control anymore. There's a few other like scuffiness that happens. Some people are gonna say you can't be as fast, but that just kind of is how it is. Just a bike physically cannot do the things you're asking it to do. The point is that the point is that you shouldn't need the kind of inputs you are using with a high direct lean to control a dirt bike, because you don't do that in real life. So why would you need it in the game? But the problem is that we're using a controller, so sacrifices have to be made. And so obviously it is faster to use a high direct lean because you're just able to lean instantly into some corners where it might take a bit of time with a low direct lean. But just because it's faster to do doesn't mean it's more realistic to do. And I'm not telling anyone to like switch what they're using. I'm not gonna be riding a really low direct lean. Oh, and that's another thing that happens. I don't know, something just kicks you in one way and you would have to react instantly without direct lean, which is just kind of impossible to do. I think it's time to wrap up the video. I've been recording this for like an hour. I don't know how long the final video is gonna be, but I hope it's at least watchable. But yeah, there's some of my thoughts on things, and hope you learned something. Hope you can use something from the video. I don't know. I don't know how I assume these things have been talked about already, but I just don't know. I don't know, so I made this video to know. So